Mike was my best friend when I was young. He lived two doors down. He was around my age and we went to the same primary school. He was a nervy boy and had a bowel problem. We all knew about it, but never mentioned it. And so he would often suddenly drop to one knee, the heel of his shoe seemingly lodged in his backside to prevent any spillage. We all knew what he was doing, but he would often invent elaborate excuses why he had suddenly stopped dead in the street or wherever we were. I always wanted to say to him, "It's okay, I know what you're doing," but I never did. It was clear why he was nervy. It ran in the family. His mother was bad with her nerves, as we would say, but there was no stigma attached to that. Everyone had someone in the family who was bad with their nerves. As children, we thought it might have been linked to her varicose veins, which were very prominent. To be fair, there was good reason for her and her son to be bad with their nerves. The father of the house was involved in the IRA in the early 70s and was interned and underwent some fairly horrendous treatment. She ended up in the local psychiatric hospital, so Michael and his sisters would often be at our house where my mum took in waifs and strays in a no-nonsense way. When his dad was released, they got a compensation payment, which allowed them to decorate their house. They even had a colour TV, a big wooden radiogram the size of the sideboard, and it had a record player, radio, and cassette player inside. But the family was clearly under strain, and Michael's mum and dad were often apart. We all knew things weren't good. But all the same, me and him would head off for singing lessons together on Friday after school. 1970s Derry was very culturally aware. Afterwards, we would call into his granny's on the way home, hoping to get biscuits or cash to get us sweets on the long walk uphill all the way back to our houses. Because his dad had been interned, a political prisoner, Michael and his sisters got to go away on what seemed to be fancy holidays in exotic places, sometimes even on aeroplanes. They went to places like England and also the States. We were lucky to get Donegal on a good year. And when his parents split up, they seemed to get even more trips because people felt sorry for them. Moral breakdown was still rare then. And I used to look at my parents and wonder if they were to split up. I mean, they didn't seem to like each other that much anyway. Would I get more to go to more places? But as I say, family split, and Michael, his mum and sisters moved away. But his dad still lived near us, so we were still in touch. When he came to stay with his dad, I would stay over sometimes, as his house was often empty, and where we lived in our street, empty houses were a rarity. With families ranging between 5 and 12 children per household, it was gold dust. I could tell you about the times he would steal money from relatives and we would binge on sausage and chips in the local chippy. Or the time he nicked a traveller's check from an American relative's handbag, which we tried to cash in the local bank, looking as dishonest as anything. Or the time we went on a political march in the middle of the night, but ended up not making it to the rally because we were up an alleyway snogging some girls we had met. But no, it was one Friday when we were in the house on our own. His dad was at the pub with his new girlfriend. Michael told me he had found a book about sex in his dad's room. Now, why a man who had fathered 5 children needed a book about sex was the real mystery to me. But it was under his dad's bed, so we took a look. And now, it wasn't a book about sex at all. It was about emotions and sensuality, looking back on it. But to us, it was pretty filthy. I remember one part in particular that he read out, that you could tell how sensuous a person was by the size of their lower lip. So I started to spout that I had a fleshy lower lip, so I must be very sensuous. Only to be immediately put in my place when Michael corrected himself and said, "Oh no, it says that's only for women." My lips immediately thinned. That night in the double bed we shared, inspired by the dirty book, no doubt, he was jokingly rubbing himself against me and rubbing his hands all over me. It was genuinely innocent, and there was no sign of any arousal at all on his part. But where I was lying, there was a very telling sign of arousal, which I had to try to disguise. Somehow he became aware of it and asked me if I was, let's just say, stimulated. Thinking as fast on my feet as he always had when he was caught out with his bowel problems, I said, "Of course I am. You're pretending to be a woman and filling me up, so of course I'm all excited." That was the end of the conversation. There wasn't some dramatic accusation or outrage or horror. He just accepted that explanation. I guess it was easier to accept that than to contemplate the truth. It wasn't something that hung over and tainted our relationship for the foreseeable future. And to be honest, I didn't fancy my friends, not ever. It's just that he was touching me a lot. The friendship didn't end there, but it did peter out, more because we had gone our separate ways than for any other reason. He came to see his dad less and less often, and then his dad died quite unexpectedly and quite young in his late 40s. I didn't see Michael again. I wasn't at the funeral as I was at university in Belfast at that stage, 1984. I later heard he moved to America and wasn't able to come home when a family member died. He's part of the undocumented Irish. There's a postscript of sorts. A few months ago, Michael's older sister sent me a friend request on Facebook. I accepted, even though I didn't recognize her from the photo, but I did recognize someone in the photos. She had her arm around the shoulders of a man who had a familiar look about him, and I was certain there was Michael, staring out, looking nervous, looking older than his years, looking as if life had been tough for him. And I felt really sad. Until I did a bit more digging, today actually, and no, that wasn't him after all. I found him on Facebook, living a fine life it seems, looking very healthy, with lots of photos of family events, pets, and wildlife in what looks like California. I was so delighted. My old best friend.
Thanks, Paul. Lovely. Oh, nice. I like the idea of you stealing money in order to be able to buy sweets or chips. So,
Oh, he was always stealing money.
oh, so you didn't steal the money. He
No, I
stole the
didn't
money.
steal. We did not. There was
Oh,
never any money in our house to steal. There
fair
always
enough.
just seemed to be more cash around his relatives, or else I don't know. No, I think I might have put my hand in my older brother's pocket once and took out a handful of 20 pences or something, but that's about the height of it.